Welcome to Debating Dating, a podcast with me, Mark Jennings.
And me, Rachel Graham.
We are two single friends. In every episode, we'll be discussing our differing perspectives on an aspect of modern dating.
We'll be sharing our honest insights and experiences as platonic pals who are not afraid to give each other the unvarnished truth.
Or laugh at each other's bullshit.
So this week we're going to chat about breakups, but hopefully it won't be too down and sad. Hopefully enough time has passed that we can have a bit of a laugh at ourselves. How do you feel about it?
Speak for yourself, Rachel. I've got my I've got my handkerchiefs at the ready. I'm going to wipe the tears away.
A little therapy session.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the thing is we've got some good submissions this week. It's an interesting discussion. I think most people have probably been on both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
It's, most people have probably been broken up with. Most people have probably maybe had to do a breakup as well at some point. And I think, from my own experience, I would say it's not nice on either end, to be honest. Obviously nobody likes to get broken up with. But if you're the breaker-upper, it's not actually that much fun either. Do you know what I mean?
I knew this would be your route. Being like, it's really so hard to say that you don't want to be with someone anymore. It is not nice, but I definitely think that when the choice is taken out of your hands, if you're not actually wanting to break up, then it is much worse to be broken up with, I think.
Well, I knew you would say that, Rachel.
Saying that though, I've broken up more times than I've been broken up with, and I know that is surprising. But I think that it's I have a lot of theories about it actually, because I was thinking, because I've not been in like a serious relationship in like quite a wee while, so I was thinking, oh good, like enough time's passed, I won't feel upset, won't feel raw, I won't have any sort of kind of like emotional feelings towards it, so that is good. But I do have a lot of kind of hindsight theories, and I do think that it is an interesting one of like, definitely everyone has gone through it, and also there's varying degrees of breakups as well. Like there's like serious relationships, and there's also like how to break up if it's a bit more casual and all that kind of stuff as well.
It's weird because like you're not always like totally upset by a breakup, but if you have one, you can tell people, oh, I've just broken up. And it's like when you've got a family member who you didn't really like that dies. It's like you can still get sympathy for it. And even though you're not, it's like, I'm actually, I've just had a breakup. And everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you're all right. And you're like, and it's like, thanks very much for your concern. But actually you don't, you're fine.
You're awful.
No, but that does happen. But then there is the times when it is more serious and you do actually care, and you're like, oh fuck, like I'm a bit gutted here. I think when I was younger, I got broken up with and took it badly, right?
Yeah. And
we'll get to that later. I think now, to be honest, right, I can't ever really envision getting that. I would be upset is one thing, but I certainly wouldn't get angry or bitter or anything like that in a way, because I think, and this is a big thing that I think we'll talk about, I think that you can't really take it personally. That's like the big thing I've learned, right?
I mean, you can, but it's not useful.
Well, yeah, but see, from having been on the side of like having been broken up with and like taking it really personally and seeing it as a slight on you as a person, and seeing it as like, almost like you're not valuable enough and all that kind of stuff, and seeing the other person as like this evil, I can't believe they done this to me sort of thing. See, when you're then on the other side where, the other person's more into you than you are them, and then you need to break it off, what I've found is like you try and do that in like the nicest way possible, and it's not like you dislike the person or something. It's like, if you heard that thing, it's like the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Well, yeah. It's kind of a bit like that, and that sounds a bit harsh, right, to be like indifferent to somebody who cares about you or whatever, but like that is the thing. And so like I think when you try and break up with someone, you try and do it with kid gloves and do it so like to try and give it the best possible landing that's not like a fucking crash right into the fucking side of the mountain.
Well, you want to be a nice person about it. You don't want to, hopefully people don't actually take any enjoyment out of upsetting someone.
No, but the thing is, the more delicately you try and do it, sometimes the worse it can be. Because I think the gist of it is really that there's no good way to go about it. There's no good way to, if one person in this relationship doesn't want to break up, there's no good way to just be like...
There's no good way, but there's definitely lots of little cushions that you can put in place, and lots of ways that you could make it a lot worse or a lot better. I definitely, have been aware of like place and all that. But I feel like we'll get into that later, because I feel like the setup of a breakup is very specific. And
100%.
Also, but going back to what you said, like, I think that yes, some of that is kind of like, when you're young, it's all like very emotional, you take it very personally. I mean, that's just time and maturity and actually starting to kind of value yourself or have confidence that it's not completely wrapped up in you as a person. It's actually that it's like circumstances or timing or just not a good fit. But I think that definitely, like, I would love to go back to like me in my teens and just be like, listen, like, this does not matter. This is not the huge deal that you think it is, and this isn't a slight on you, and this doesn't mean that you're unlovable. It's that thing of being like, and also that thing of being like, you're going to meet other people. I think that when you're younger, you're like, this is my entire world, and I can't imagine anyone else liking me. And it's like, there's a lot of people in the world. Like, you will probably find someone else.
Aye, that's it. It gets into all of that thing of like thinking it's your soulmate and all that, because it's, the person you sat next to in class in high school or whatever, like, and then you realise, your horizons broaden a wee bit, and you realise the world's a bigger place than that. But I think it's an interesting one, and we'll get into it. So as I say, like, to go back to the point you were making, there's technically no good way to do it, but there's certainly a lot of very bad ways and horrible ways you can do it, and I think we'll get into that. So there's a few examples, I think, within the submissions we got this week of how not to do it, maybe, but we'll have a listen and get into the nitty gritty of breakups.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to say nitty gritty?
Yeah.
Why?
I could see it in your face. I don't know. Nitty gritty.
Get our elbows in the mud.
Oh.
What is that worse? That's no worse.
I'm just thinking about your virginity story. That's all I'm thinking about.
Oh, right. No, let's not get back into that. For fuck's sake.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode and just kind of like listening to other people's stuff. And it's funny as well, because when you look back, you're like, because I was thinking, I've only had like a couple of like serious breakups, but then I was like, we did break up quite a few times, so maybe there's like different scenarios of the breakup.
Multiple breakups with the same person. That's
because that always ends well.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a great idea to get back with someone that you break up with, right?
Yeah, it's never went wrong as far as I can tell. We've got the first submission that we'll play now, where someone was given an ultimatum on their relationship. So we'll have a wee listen to this now.
So I've been dating this lassie for a wee while now, and we went on a drive as we normally done. And during this drive, she basically decided to ask to choose between her and my female best friend.
Oh my God.
Now, I've known this lassie, my best friend, for years. So I basically turned around and went, I'm not losing a friend over a relationship. And she broke up with me there and then. This was halfway through the drive. So I then just had to drive home. But because there was traffic and whatnot, we were basically just sitting in the car, dead silence for an hour. And yeah, I've not seen her since.
Oh my God, that's so awkward.
I mean, if someone asked me, right, if I was in a relationship, Rachel, and someone said, listen, see that pal you've got that you do the podcast with?
Yeah.
It's me or her. I'm afraid to say you would need to find a new co-host.
As long as I can have the podcast, on you go. It's like divorce settlement. I'll take debating dating, please. Thanks.
Yeah.
You can have all my free advice.
Yeah, unless it was someone that I was wanting to get out of a relationship with, and then I'd be like, well, I just could not do that to Rachel. I'm afraid that's where I draw the line. And, use my excuse to get out.
Sounds like a good plan.
Quite handy. That's interesting though, isn't it? Because like basically that sounds like, I mean, either that person was just looking for an excuse to get out of the relationship with him, or I mean, it's like, does that come from kind of jealousy? Is it like sort of that thing of like you can't have your boyfriend have female friends? Like, what's that all about?
Any relationship that you feel like you need to have an ultimatum, that's unhealthy in itself, and it's also really problematic to control your partner. Like, I think if that was the other way around, and I hate when people use this logic, but I do think if it was the other way around, like, you'd be like, that's a controlling person. That's someone who's trying to like inhibit someone from their friendships, which are so valuable and so important. I mean, if you think about it, if you look at your own life, and like, so much of the time you'll have friendships that last way longer than relationships. You might be with someone for a long time, but you will have friends who you've known since like school or whatever, and they are so valuable. So for someone to kind of say don't be friends with them, I think that's really worrying behaviour. And it's just a bit like that is my official answer of like, I think that's unhealthy, and I think it's unacceptable, and I think it's good that the listener was like, listen, that's like a really easy thing for me to just be like, no, I'm not doing that. Especially like, because if they have like a good friendship and stuff like that, like it's like really basic, like that's like friends territory where they kind of are like, you can't hang about with your friend like Rachel and fucking Emily.
Well, the thing is though, it's like, it's no usually as upfront as that. Usually like a lot of the time what will happen is like, somebody that gets in a relationship will sort of subtly get removed for their pals group, and then it's like, it's almost like this, like it's like a wee cult. The relationship becomes like this wee cult. It's like, it's just us two, and
against the world.
Don't hang about with any of them sort of thing, and like, and then it's like, and then obviously if the relationship then ends, sometimes after years, then you get out and all of a sudden like, I've cut off all my pals, and then you need to try and reach out to them and kind of be like, all right, I've not spoken to you in a couple of years, do you want to get a pint or whatever? Like, and it's awkward. Like, it's almost like you've escaped this fucking cult or whatever, like the fucking Manson family. But I think there's a weird thing, and I think it's no legit. I think men and women both do it in relationships to their partners, like where they just sort of kind of subtly like just take them away. What? Oh, don't hang about with them anymore, sort of thing. Oh, just spend time with me. Don't go, don't do this. Like,
especially if they don't like the friend, that's a bit more complicated. Do you know what I mean? But
often I wonder if, as well, where it comes from insecurity. Not only even if it's, let's say it's like a girlfriend who's not happy with her boyfriend being with a female pal, but even like their male pals, like they're jealous of like how much fun they have with them, or how much they seem to like hanging about with their pals more than them or whatever. And then it's like a sort of way to just be like, take back control, or overcompensate for the insecurity of like, oh, I'm not sure if they're that committed to this relationship, so I'll try and fucking trap them more. Which obviously there's that's a bit of a stereotype, I think, when it's like, guys, I think women will do that to them or whatever. But as I say, it happens in both ways, and it does it does happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's something to be looked out for, and in a way that was actually a good escape, like to get it that up front, like, right, stop this now or we're over. Then it is an easy decision, you just go, oh well, fuck it. But if it's kind of like that subtle shit, and then it's like the boil and the frog, and before you know it, like, you've not got any mates and you've not seen them in 2 years because you've spent all your time with your partner, and you've got cocooned into this wee fucking isolation chamber.
Got a little dead frog in your soup. No, totally. I think that's the problem with most relationships, is that it's never black and white. There's always like muddied water, and there's always a lot of like you said, like levels of insecurity, maybe unsure whether like you have as much fun in the relationship and all that kind of stuff. I think the female friendship thing, me speaking from my experience, is I think if the relationship is solid enough, you should have the confidence to be like I trust that this person loves me, and that I think obviously people get jealous, like it's natural to get jealous, but I found that in my kind of my adult relationship in my 20s, I just trusted that person, and he actually had a close female friend who he'd actually like used to go out with, and it was funny because he didn't say that at first, but it wasn't like he was hiding it. It was just that thing of being like, oh yeah, actually we used to go out, but she had a boyfriend, and obviously we were together, and I was really, really comfortable and secure in that relationship. So I knew that they could stay, like, I wouldn't want to tell anyone to do anything anyway, but I also didn't feel threatened by this person because I was like, well, there was a reason that relationship ended, and there was a reason that we now are in a really secure, healthy, happy relationship. So what's the point in comparing yourself to someone else? It's not very like sisterhood as well, like just to, you know, be like, oh my god, the friend and the ex and all that. Like it's a bit hack, it's a bit old, and I don't want to be that person.
Totally. And the thing is as well, like the reality is a lot of the time, like if you've got a pal of the opposite sex, present company excluded, it's somebody that you've slept with before, do you know what I mean? And then you still get pals. I say we're the exception to this rule, Rachel, but like
I think that's funny that you think that's like the usual.
But no, I've got a few pals, like, you know, like female friends that, you know, we slept together a couple of times or whatever, and then we're still just pals, and like, you know, I could count them as a female friend, and occasionally just catch up and have a beer, and maybe they're in a relationship or maybe I'd be in one, you know, and like we still just kind of keep in touch because you know, whatever, like just because we got on or something. So I think that's quite healthy, to be honest. And like I think if I got in a relationship and somebody wasn't comfortable with me talking to them, I think it'd be weird. So
yeah, I mean, I don't relate to that. Like, I don't sleep with my friends. I like, I like that.
Are you saying
separate.
that the guys don't ever speak to you again afterwards, Rachel? Is that what you're really saying?
No.
If only I still had some.
You're my only friend because we've never shagged.
There's somebody I know was telling me that they had a breakup bench that they would go to. And it's like you broke up with like a couple of different people on the same bench, basically.
Yeah, I had a breakup bench. So good.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it must be a thing because it's
what's the reason that you used that bench?
Well, secluded, nice and private.
You think it's like a neutral venue as well, like because it's no one yours or theirs.
Yeah, well, I have a theory that I've had an evolution of breakups because, like,
this is Rachel Graham's theory of evolution here. Can't wait for this one.
It's just me being awful.
Charles Darwin over here.
I do think that I had the evolution of like when I was a teenager, would always break up outside. So that's when I had my bench.
But you'd do everything outside. You'd be fucking shagging outside and fucking.
Not me, Mark. Speak for yourself.
No, but when you're that young that you can't really go to the house, do you know what I mean? Like,
I wouldn't be shagging outside. I'm classy as fuck. Can you tell? My little breakup bench.
That's it. Well, outside of the West End bubble, that was happening a lot as a teenager, I can tell you that, Rachel.
I used to do everything outside, and I remember, like, I would break up on the same, well, not the same, yeah, it would be like the same bench, but I just have so many, like, cringy memories of just, like, crying in the street, or, like, having a fight in the street, and then, like, getting, like, having like a breakup conversation and being like sobbing, and then this woman like from her house having to come out and check if I was okay, which was really nice for her. But I remember now looking back and like, that is such a riddy.
So funny that you would have been known in the local area as well. There's that crying lassie again. Fucking who's broke her heart this week?
Pretty much.
My ex has my name tattooed on him. I know that's not uncommon, but he has my full name tattooed on him and on his foot, and it's in this like horrible Comic Sans font, which is just hilarious because now every girl he gets with, he has to explain why he has this full name on him. So it's good for me. I mean, like free marketing, building the brand, you know, but it's funny.
Oh my god, a full name. That's awful.
There's no getting away from that, you know. I mean, if you've got like, you know, you got Abby or something tattooed on you, I mean, potentially, I mean, it'd still be quite a stretch to, or quite far lengths to go to try and find another person called Abby so that you know you could still have that and it be relevant. But yeah, to find someone with the full name would be very difficult. It's hard enough like just deleting them for your Instagram grid or not being able to look back at holiday photos or something, but to not be able to look at like your forearm or whatever without being reminded of them is absolutely brutal. Like, I just don't know how you would I don't know why anyone would ever get that tattoo in the first place. It is so stupid to me to why get somebody to get your partner's name tattooed on you, because like the chances of that blowing up in your face are so high.
I suppose people do it as a kind of like to prove it, like to prove that they genuinely believe that that relationship is forever. But I would think of it as me being the girl who is the next girl, and it would be so easy to stalk the ex. You'd just be like constantly looking at their foot like, oh, well, I do know their full names, so I could just have a little swatch of their stuff, of their social media.
Their Instagram handle he's got tattooed on. So we can have a wee peruse here, like... It's only, but that would be a funny ultimatum as well. It's like, right, you either get your name tattooed on me, or my name tattooed on you, or fucking get out of here, you know what I mean? Like,
I know it's really unhealthy, but my first thought thinking that is like, I'm struggling to get a text back, and this person is getting their full name tattooed on their boyfriend's foot, like, slightly jealous. Even though I wouldn't like the reality of that, I like the idea of being like, he loves me that much.
Well, I went out with a lassie at one point, and her name was Kimberly Clark, right? Which is the same name as that like brand that make dispensers for paper towels on public bathrooms on that night. Which is weird. So like anytime, because like we didn't work out, and then like I'd be on a night out, try to forget about her, meet somebody else, and then I'd like go to the bathroom and see Kimberly Clark written everywhere. The emotions come rushing back.
You'd be sitting on the toilet, like, pulling down the toilet paper. It just says Kimberly Clark, like, wiping your eyes.
Wiping away the tears, that's it. And then, like, my mates would be standing at the dispenser, like taking all the paper towels, going, look, mate, I'm pulling your ex right now, man. So there's this article I found, right? And it's called 7 Surprising Ways Your Body Reacts to a Breakup. Mm-hmm. And it says, no, that headache isn't just a figure of your imagination, right? So... apparently there's like, because I've heard before that the best way to deal with a breakup is just to completely cut off all ties, so that like the synapses in your brain that go to like pleasure or something are used to like associating that person with those feelings. This literally the first point says your brain registers real feelings of pain and real cravings for your ex. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Neurophysiology found that when people are shown pictures of their exes, activity is induced in the part of the brain that also registers physical pain. Likewise, a 2011 study by researchers showed that when you are going through a breakup and feel like you are missing your significant other, it is really a craving. The areas in the brain that become active are the same ones that kick in when cocaine addicts are experiencing physical pain and withdrawal. So basically, there is like physical reactions that you have, and like I guess if you see your ex again, basically after, it means that your body's feeling an actual physical response of like, fucking, it's as if you're trying to get off coke or something like that. You
don't want to be someone that people think, oh my god, like it's been ages and they're not over it. And I really felt a lot of shame when it took me a long time to go over one of my breakups, like too long. But it was that thing that we were saying before. It's that thing of like being young and it being tied up with your insecurities and your sense of self and your confidence. And I genuinely thought that I was never going to meet anyone else who would like me. So it was like I was like mourning grief of anyone ever being in a relationship with me. It was more than just like this one person, like that it didn't work out between us. But I think that it's only now that I'm learning that we do hold so much like emotional memory in our bodies. Like if you think about like stress, like that always kind of manifests itself into like jaw tension or migraines, headaches, or like if you like cry loads, like your body becomes fatigued from like the tension and the stress. So like if you are actually as well in your brain having all these connections with this person, connected with pleasure and with pain, like obviously that will take a while for us to kind of get over.
Aye, and the more that you like, you know, you go on and check their social media and see what they're up to, and sort of focus on them, the more you're like stimulating those sort of synapses or whatever it is in the brain to kind of keep associating, you know, the pleasure or whatever with them, and that will then lead to that'll lead to people like phoning them up and try to get back with them, and or just like obsessing over them all the time and try to figure out how to get them back, even if it wasn't, you know, right in the first place. So I think the healthiest thing I think cutting them off is a healthy thing to do, because you understand that your physical body is having these responses and is going to make you feel sad and want them back and all that, even if you necessarily know it's not the best thing in the world. So cutting it off, it is almost like you're having to go cold turkey on them, because you know that you need to give your body a bit of time to like calm down, like you say, with that adrenaline response. Like, so it's almost like you need to outsmart your body a wee bit, like by just not doing it. But it's so hard nowadays. Like, if you're still following somebody on social media and all that, they keep coming up in your stuff, then they're at the forefront of your mind, and you start to think, oh, should we get back, and all this sort of stuff, when actually it's not a good idea.
I think in the past people have kind of judged me a wee bit for being an emotional person or a sensitive person. I know that I need to cut all ties, and I actually am quite proud that I can cut all ties. And, you know, I've always been quite like, I was honest with my ex-boyfriend in the early days of being like, this actually, it's not a personal thing. It's that I know that I would feel such a huge connection to you that I would need time to not see you. But he deleted me on everything and like blocked me on all I don't know if he blocked me, but he definitely like took himself out of my you know, social media world. And that actually meant I genuinely, like, that meant a lot to me, which sounds a bit strange, but it was because I had kind of said, listen, I need that. He'd kind of known that I would have wanted that. And also I think that he was someone who didn't really show his emotions and really struggled to speak about how he felt. And it's like that thing you were saying about indifference. Like, he wasn't indifferent to me. Like, he also needed time to like be away from me. And I think him choosing us to cut those ties clean meant that he actually did love me and did care about me, and that it was mutual, that we both needed time apart to kind of grieve this loss of like a few years of our life together.
Well, I had an experience that was sound a wee bit similar in terms of like taking pure ages to go over something, right? But in fairness, when I look back at this, I was always a bit embarrassed about this, but when I look back, I can sort of sympathise with my younger self a wee bit, because so basically it was she was the first lassie I ever really liked, and we went out for a wee bit, but I was only 18 at the time, and it was only a couple of months. Wasn't even a real relationship probably, but when she then kind of broke up with me, to be fair to her, done it really like gently. It was kind of like, oh, maybe we should take a wee break for a while, you know, classic pure friends thing, right? But like, but you know, she let me down gently, sort of thing. And then, but the problem was like we worked together, right? So I would still see her all the time. So again, it was like I was never able to just kind of move on, and I was always trying to, you know, I was always seeing her, and it was always thinking in my mind, like, you know, trying to get her back and all these things. And so it took like fucking ages, like, for me to get over it, right? To the point where like, this is one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever done, right? And this is the only time I've done, and I think, to be honest, I learned so much for it, and it was quite early on as I was young, that I think it's helped me going forward never really have these experiences again. Like, but basically, like, so after a couple of years of like us not being together and all that, and I think like I was trying to get her back, and I think we like kissed again or something like that. But then I remember like, I think I heard like she was chatting to like one of my pals or something, right? So like one night we were on the nightclub, and I pure went up and I was like, how dare you do this, and blah blah blah, and like pure made like a big meal of it, basically just like totally just let all my kind of feelings out of like, you don't know how much I care and blah blah blah, and you're like this and that, basically pure making her out to be a bad person, just for the simple reason that she wasn't that anime, she didn't really want to be with me, right?
Yeah.
And so it ended up this pure absolute like just embarrassing thing. It was just horrible. And then like she like, because I've still not got her on social media, right? And I think she like took me off all this stuff and all that, and like, you know, with good reason. Like, I actually really would love to kind of bump into her now and just kind of be like, listen, oh, sorry about all that stuff when we were young and daft, and that was it. And I hope you're getting on well. Like, I do generally hope she's all right. And I pure feel embarrassed about like how I reacted to getting dumped.
I think that it's funny that you think that's like, still like that you think that's like, oh, I learned so much, it's such awful behaviour. I did so much worse than that. I was a little dramatic gal of like nights out and like bumping into an ex-boyfriend and being like chatting to them and feeling really like weird and like, you know, having arguments and being like, you're incapable of love and all this kind of shit. Like,
well, I always remember the thing I thought about her is like, oh, like she's, you know, she's not got any feelings. It's like, no, she's got feelings. She just doesn't have feelings for you. That's
for you, positive feelings. I think thinking about like scenarios of bumping into exes, like I am such a fantasist, and I always will like kind of, especially when you're in like a recent breakup or whatever, and you kind of try and foresee like what if you were to bump into them, how you would act to them. And I think it like says so much of like where you are how you look at the breakup, because I feel like my thoughts on how I would be with them changes like, you know, month on month on month of like, I think at first you would be like, well, I would just ignore them because that would like really well, this is obviously if it's like a really bad breakup and like they've not treated you well, I'll be like, I'll ignore them because that will really hurt their feelings, because it's that showing indifference, showing that you don't really care. And then there'd be time that would pass that I'd be like, okay, well, I think that, you know, I think that I would like speak to them as if I was really like easy breezy, and that would be the best way to do it and all that kind of stuff. And then it gets to a point where you're like, I know that if I bumped into them, I genuinely wouldn't care, and that's the best place to be, of being like, doesn't matter.
Well, all that other shit, like, you know, whether you ignore them or whether you like try and play it cool and all that stuff, that's all just like you're no actually over it, and you're just anything that isn't you just acting naturally. And see, be honest, even the thought of fantasizing about it, and we're all guilty of it, I think. Like, you know, so you do sometimes think, oh, I wonder, you know,
fantasizing is maybe the wrong word.
No, but
you're imagining it.
You imagine it happening. But in all honesty, like, all of that stuff, like, you know, just shows that you're like, until you get to a place where you're just kind of like, oh, like, you know, if I bumped into them, I'd just sort of say, oh, how you been? You know, I wish you well, kind of thing. Like, anything else, all this other like try to like be cool, it's all ego, and it's all like, you know, it's really just you trying to overcompensate for your hurt feelings, really.
I agree with that. But I also think there's people that like have treated me badly that I don't care about them, and I am over that. But it's like trying to work out how to operate around them because you don't want to act like their behaviour towards you is acceptable. So I would argue that there's like a slight difference with that. Like, it's not that I am still upset, it's that I'm like, I would like them to know that the way they treated me wasn't okay.
It's weird because there is a thing of like, you do want to, you know, the next time you bump into somebody that you used to go out with or whatever, you do want to be the person that's in a better place. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want
like,
to be the one that's
like high school reunion. Like, you want your life to be together.
Aye, but yeah, I know you don't want to like sort of get caught in the wrong day, you know, when you've not had a shower and you're in your trackies and you're in the supermarket and you're like, oh shit, no, like the worst possible time ever. Honestly, I think breakups are a good thing for you. I think rejection's a good thing for you. I think any time that you have a failure in life, you know, quote unquote failure, it's a real learning opportunity, and
totally.
you can really grow as a person for it. I feel sometimes that I got lucky, that I got unlucky. Do you know what I mean? Like, see if I'd just like still been with that lassie that I went out when I was 18, I might have just, you know, my entire life could have been like, I might never have kind of had to discover who I really was, and would have just sort of went along with the flow. And I think some people maybe that, you know, if they don't get certain, you know, if they just have everything a bit smooth sailing, sometimes you don't need you don't have the failures or the, you know, rejection or whatever, the tough times that then lead to you going down a path that, you know, led to a good place, basically. So I do always say that I feel like there's a few times with that I feel like I've got lucky, that I got unlucky that a relationship didn't work out, or, you know, I didn't get a certain job or something like that, that's then led me to the place that I probably would have wanted to go in the first place.
You need the light and shade. Like, you don't want to live an existence where everything is like fine. You want to like really, well, I don't know, I want to really experience like pure joys of like, you know, traveling and like having really amazing times. And I think that they are highlighted by actually sometimes you do need to have the shit times to appreciate the great times.
You wouldn't appreciate the sunshine if you didn't have the rain. Can't remember what song that is, but that's some sort of song.
It's funny, I think that we're speaking about our teenage stuff because more time has passed and it's easier to chat about it.
It's also the last time I felt any emotions. Right, so we'll have a listen to this next one then. So this was someone who broke up with their partner in a rather unusual way.
So I'm the biggest pussy when it comes to like ending a relationship. Like, I know that I'm upset in this relationship, I'm not happy in this relationship, but I also know that if it ends, I'm gonna cry for months about it, even though I know it's not right. So I was with this guy and he was so insecure, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I was driving him home because he didn't drive either. It was just me driving everywhere. So I was driving him home and I was like, this is it. I'm just gonna do it. And I popped RuPaul's Breakup Bye Bye on the Spotify. And I was full out, like, flipping my hair, like, And then, like, we got him home and I was like, yeah, so that's how I felt. I hope you're okay. And I felt so bad because he was distraught. He was legit distraught. And I was like, bye. And just kind of drove off.
Oh my God, what a song to get broken up with. Do you know it?
So what did she say? She put a song on.
Yeah, so she like was too scared to break up with him, so she put Breakup Bye Bye, which is like a RuPaul's Drag Race song that's like, break up, bye bye, goodbye, and it's like, I want to break up, bye bye, basically.
And then she just went, that's how I feel, see you later. Yeah. Fuck's sake.
I love that it's like the medium of drag is so empowering and useful. You'd just be like, right, I can't say it with words. RuPaul's Drag Race needs to say it.
I mean, you could have literally used any song that just was like, I don't love you anymore or some shit like that. Like,
I mean, it's such a wee shame. That would be really horrible to take, of being like, I wonder why they're playing this song on repeat in the car when we've already listened to this one. It's like, I just really want you to get the message from it.
A bit on the nose, isn't it? Like, fucking...
It's not even like a beautiful, like, nuanced song. It's like, I want to break up, bye-bye.
Yeah. I'm going to take a leap here and imagine that guy's probably not going to be listening to that song a lot anyway. But if it was like a song, you know, that was pure on all the time, do you know what I mean? Like, and then you had to hear it everywhere and it would always remind you, like, that would be pretty brutal. Like, if you get into like that, have you got any, like, things that, like, you associate with breakups that you can't...
Yeah, loads of songs that you associate, or even like, it's annoying when you go and see lots of films with someone like as a couple, and then you will always kind of remember that you went to the cinema and saw it, you know? Yeah, there are a few songs, like there's a few songs that if they come on, I just can't disassociate from specific people. But like, that's the way that humans work. Like we make connections with music and film and even like smells. Apparently smells are really, really evocative, is that the right word? Like they really like evoke a strong reaction or a really strong like connection to memory. Like apparently memory is really connected to smell, and I used to really find that because I used to deliberately try and have a signature scent. So like I would God. It's actually, did
you read that really in like a fucking magazine or something? Cosmo. You need to have a signature scent to attract your man.
Do you know what? It's not to attract a man. It's like, I just liked the sense of it being like a constant. So like, even just like having like a bold red lipstick, I like that being like part of like what people kind of expect. But
so what was your signature scent? What was it?
Well, I've had about 4 or 5 signature scents, because what you do
is it just perfume?
Yeah, it's just perfume. But like literally what you do is you you buy a perfume and then you only wear that perfume for like a couple of years. So then people will start to associate you with that smell. So obviously you have to choose like a nice one. But then I then just associate it with ex-boyfriends, which is like really sad that I can't actually just make it about me. But like I'll like smell a smell and I'll be like, oh, that was that era of my life. That was that chapter of my life.
So you
like,
associate how you smelled with the perfume with the ex you were with? That's weird.
Is that weird?
Would you? I don't know, but
It's
would
maybe
you
a bit
remember?
self-involved.
Yeah, it's very self-involved. Because like, how do you know what you? Because would you not get used to the smell and you wouldn't smell it anymore? Like, I'd understand if like they had a certain smell and like you
they all
associated
have
it with them.
They'll have that too. Like it's like Davidoff cool water. I can't deal with that smell. Like it's so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
But I do think like, yeah, and like I remember my ex-boyfriend saying like, I think we bumped into each other on a night out once we'd broken up, and we were like sitting outside like ABC, like Sauchiehall Street, Glasgow at like 4 a.m, deconstructing our relationship. But he said like, oh, I just remember someone walking by and like smelling like you, and it just made me really miss you. And I remember thinking, yes, that's exactly what I wanted from a signature scent.
There must be quite a danger though, right? Because see, if you get quite a popular perfume that a lot of women have got,
Yeah.
the danger would be that if your boyfriend's on a night out and then smells
loves
somebody
it.
with that same smell, maybe he's more likely to cheat on you. And then he'd be like, well, you can't blame me. She smelled exactly like you.
She was an Yves Saint Laurent L wearer.
Honestly, I mean, I you know, that's the risk you take. I thought you were going to say you like blended different ones so that you've got a unique. Do you know what I mean? A wee bit of YSL and fucking, you know, I don't know the names of them. Number 7. I don't know what the fuck that is. But like, I think it's lipstick. But
like Chanel number 5 or something.
Aye, Chanel number 5 and Chanel number 7, and then you're Chanel number 6. Do you know what I mean? Like,
they're not meant to be mixed. I would not advise anyone to start mixing
That's
perfumes.
what I thought you meant by a signature scent. So, but basically, you just wore the same perfume for ages.
I just wore the same perfume, but to the point that like it would be years. So you know, you'd be buying it like. You'd wear it and then you'd buy more or whatever. Yeah. I don't really do that as much anymore, but that's because I'm less contrived. Obviously, back in the day, I used to be like, this is my look and this is how I want like to be, and then I just cared a lot less in my 20s.
And so what's an example of a song that you can't listen to anymore without associating it with an ex or a breakup?
Oh God. I don't want to say it. No,
come on, this is what the people want to hear, Rachel.
Well, no, but it's just it's classic soft boy territory. Just embarrassing. Bon Iver, Skinny Love. It's like, obviously it's about like holding on to a relationship that like you know is gonna end, and I felt like that for the entirety of the relationship, of just being like, oh my God, he doesn't want to be with me anymore. He's like chatting to other girls. He doesn't like me. He doesn't love me. He's, you know, cheating on me. So I think like then I was like, oh my God, of course, like that is exactly what the song is about. And then he also really liked that song. So now when it comes on, I'm like, I don't care anymore, but like I can't not associate it with like feeling a bit shit about myself.
Yeah.
What about you?
Beautiful by Eminem. That is the one that got me. It was around about the time.
Sing a little bit.
I can't remember how it goes, but it's like, it starts like, I can't remember the words of it. It's like, maybe I've been hard to read, I can feel on my own, summer day. I can't remember how it goes, but people, you can just obviously go on YouTube. But,
that better stay in.
And then like the first bit's like Eminem goes, I'm so fucking depressed, and like says that. It's not just music, obviously, that you can associate, because like I suppose there's certain places you've been with your ex and stuff like that come up as well.
Yeah, but do you know what's funny? So, because I'm very like out of sight, out of mind. Ignorance is bliss, as you can tell from like wanting to completely cut out like people from social media.
Yeah.
I think
and
that
just
makes
your
sense.
general knowledge as well. You know, ignorance is bliss is definitely.
Just because we have different knowledge in different areas, I'm fucking great on a pub quiz. But,
I'm gonna say this so that it's in the canon of the podcast. Once Rachel,
oh my God. Stop it. I know what you're going to say.
People need to know this, right?
No, they don't.
So we were talking about O.J. Simpson, right? And Rachel went like, no, don't tell me. And we're like, what? And she went, you were watching the People versus O.J. Simpson and you didn't want spoilers of how it was going to end.
Yes, okay, but
I'm watching this documentary about JFK. He's just on his way to Dallas. Don't give me any spoilers. I know. Apparently Dallas loves him. Like so.
Fuck off. I would like to say in my defence, I knew roughly what was going on, but that was very in-depth, so I couldn't remember what happened with like specifics about the trial and all that shit. Like I did.
What a beautiful day in New York. I hope nothing bad happens here in mid-September 2001.
Oh my god, Mark.
How did you not look like it's like, I mean, it's
I
literally
knew.
one of the most famous. You did not know because you said you were talking about being in jail or whatever, and you're like, oh, don't I know how you like were waiting on the verdict to the trial.
Yeah, I didn't fully know what was gonna happen.
That's great.
I do, but this is the thing that annoys me is like
I really hope this Hitler guy doesn't win this war. That's like
excuse me, I'm very into history, I'm into like specific, like ask me anything about specific things, but like
who was the person that got shot to start World War One?
Franz Ferdinand.
Okay, what was the name of the thing they signed at the end of World War One that then ended up leading to World War Two?
The Versailles Treaty?
Fuck, okay, fair enough.
I'm fucking good at history. I think I'd be better than you at history.
What was the name of O.J. Simpson's lawyer?
Rob Kardashian.
Not him, the main one.
But this is the thing, so that doesn't interest me as much. Chosen.
Sorry, what was the name?
1 second, I'm just gonna.
No, you're not like Google it. No. And this, by the way, is after watching the documentary.
Okay, but this story is from like literally 5 years ago, and you've just been dining out on it ever since.
I mean, it's fucking unbelievable. That's why.
I don't think it is though, because that's the thing about like knowledge is like what you're interested in. Like if you ask me about like specific times in history, I know loads about history, but I didn't know about like Watergate, for example, because it didn't ever interest me because I wasn't really interested in American politics, whereas that is what interests you, so you know about it.
But I just don't understand how you could have got through life without ever hearing about the O.J. Simpson trial.
I knew that he killed her, but I just couldn't remember what happened.
Well, didn't he go off with it?
Well, he did it though.
He could sue you.
I don't think he's got time.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Places that... Tell us a place that you can't go because of a breakup.
I remember I used to like drive through like Finiston with my eyes... Well, I didn't drive. I was like in a taxi and I was like...
That must have been quite a safe journey for whoever was in the passenger seat. You're just like, oh no, we're going into Finiston. Okay, someone hold the wheel.
No, I would like just have avoided places that I thought that people would be, or like places that made me like feel sad. So then at one point I had to get a taxi and I just remember pure like closing my eyes being like, I don't even want to look at all the places that remind me of this person, which is so overdramatic. So that's why I think it's funny that you're like, I'm so embarrassed by that. I'm like, I will out embarrass you on every point with like breakup chat.
Oh well, I'm not surprised by that, to be honest, but it's weird that I thought you were going to say like a specific, like a restaurant or a bar or a bench or some shit like that. I didn't think the entirety of the area of Finiston, like, which isn't that far from where you stay. Like, how do you like?
I know it's like across. No, I would just avoid it. But also, like, it was quite lucky because my ex-boyfriend, in my 20s, he lived in Coatbridge, which was great because I never went back there.
Why would you ever go there?
Well, so I remember when I broke up with him, because also we were in a relationship for like a good couple of years, like 3 years, and I used to always, like, he would either come and stay with me a lot or I would stay with him a lot, and there was a lot of like driving back and forth. Like, probably takes about half an hour to drive to Coatbridge from where I was. And it was just like the same drive all the time, and it was one of those things where it was like so many nights a week I was just driving down the M8 and kind of like, and then when I didn't feel like I was like in the happiest of places with the relationship, I just was like, oh, I hate this drive, and it was always dead like rainy and grey, and I was just always like, oh god. And then when I kind of decided that I needed to break up with him, I like drove to his place, and then we had the conversation, and then he like left, and I remember driving like back to my house, and it was maybe about like 6 o'clock at night, and I was just driving back, and it had been really horrible day, like grey and rainy. And then I was driving, and like the sun came out, and this big rainbow appeared, and it was like it was like me driving back home, and I was thinking, I never have to do that drive ever again. The sun is coming out, like it's like a brighter thing. You made the right decision. And I don't believe in signs, and I don't believe in like the universe and like all that kind of stuff. Like I do think that everything kind of happens for a reason in a general sense, but I do remember having that drive and being like, oh my god, like my home is at the end of the rainbow, and I never have to go back to feeling so shit and sad again. So I remember being like loving it.
Talking of places that you associate with breakups, this next submission that we've got basically is to do with that. It's a time where they went somewhere, and he can't really separate the place from the breakup, I would say.
So last year I took my ex, who we'd just been going out for just under 6 months, took her to Edinburgh for the weekend, and I knew Edinburgh was expensive, but fuck me. One night we went out, and it was a Michelin star restaurant, but it cost 108 quid for just the 2 days. I was drinking a beer that was 7 quid for a shitty wee glass. Total weekend cost me just about 700 quid. And it wasn't for an anniversary, and so I was like thinking I was in the good books and all that. I ended up getting dumped a week later. I was raging at the time, to be fair, but now it's just a funny story, and my mates slaughter me every chance they get. I've never really liked Edinburgh, and all that done was reinforce my hatred for it.
I think that's such a Glasgow attitude to have, though. It's like to literally like blame Edinburgh for it. It's like, I fucking always knew it was a lot of shite, that Edinburgh, and it's only confirmed my suspicions.
I loved that listener, just the way that he was so like sweet about it. Like he thought that he was like being like a really nice wee boyfriend.
That's me in the good books there. See, to have that amount of money spent on you, right? A week is nowhere near enough time between that and the breakup. Like, you need to see if you have some experience like that. You've got to give it, you've got to give it a couple of weeks at least, where you've got a sort of grace period of like, okay, maybe I want to break up with him, but you can't just do it after they've bought you all this shit or whatever. Like, I always feel as well, like, sometimes, like, if things get a wee bit more serious, like, see if it's the first time, like your partner's met your family, or you've been on a holiday or something like that, you've been for a birthday expensive meal or whatever like that, that's got to be factored into when you break up, because you can't just do it right after it. And I think sometimes, like, see if you're in a relationship where like you want to break up, you want to avoid these scenarios like a holiday or a wedding or like a family gathering or something, because basically like you don't want to put more pressure on yourself and the relationship. Like you don't want to tighten your straitjacket while you're plotting an escape. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's just a bit of a shame, really, like to allow, but I have a real thing that I'm not really used to people spending that much money on me, because I don't really like feeling indebted to people, like even just pals or whatever. Like I really believe in fairness and equality, and it being not a one-sided friendship or not a one-sided relationship. So I think I've always operated in the sense of being like, they buy you something, you buy it back. I do think it's pretty shit for this poor guy who's like spent so much money. What I would say is that, like, I think that we need to be aware that, like, just because someone pays for something, or just because there is like an element of someone like treating you to something money wise, doesn't mean that you owe them anything, especially like as a woman. Like, you're not, like, if someone takes you out for like a big meal and they offer to pay, I mean, I would go half, but it also doesn't mean that they have to like stay with you or whatever.
No, obviously there's that, and that's the thing, like, if guys try and sort of buy the, like, it's even with the drinks thing into it, it's like you buy the drinks so, they're obliged to, like, sit and have a chat, that, which shouldn't happen. Yeah. But I would say this one, like, I mean, they've been going out for 6 months. Yeah. This one's more the opposite side, where basically that lassie knew you know, this isn't going to last or whatever, and let him take them and have all this expensive meal. And probably at no point said, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have this expensive meal. Maybe we shouldn't stay at this hotel. Maybe just
Well, she shouldn't have gone at all.
You shouldn't have gone at all. So it's not as if he's pure trying to cut it. He's like, they've been doing it for 6 months. He's like trying to be the good boyfriend and all that stuff. And then she's fucking just went and threw it back in his face. All right, I'll just get a staff prick to pay for this weekend, and then I'll get shot at him. And the fact it was only a week, man, that is like shady. I think that is really shady behaviour.
I think it's really shady. I think we are presuming the absolute worst of this girl. Like, we don't know the full relationship, we don't know the full story, but like
maybe he was doing it to overcompensate because he knew it wasn't going well. She's like, fuck, I better spend £700 before she dumps me. And then she did it anyway.
Yeah, maybe. Like, we don't know the full story, but like the way it sounds, it is a bit of a wee shame for this guy, and like stoking that little like hatred for Edinburgh. It's funny, like, that Edinburgh gets brought up because Edinburgh was like with my relationship in my 20s. It was quite a big thing because my ex-boyfriend had never been to Edinburgh, but he lived in Coatbridge, which is like on the way to Edinburgh, like, and you know, it's not far, it's probably like half an hour to Edinburgh. And he'd never been before. And then I was in the Fringe and he came to see my shows, and he was kind of walking around like, oh my God, this place is like so weird. Like, there's all these steps and, you know, it's like pure that castle and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, how can you have like grown up and never kind of even wanted to go to Edinburgh? Like, even just to experience it.
I'd barely been before I started doing stand-up.
But I think it's so bizarre to like not want to travel. And I think that's ultimately one of the reasons why me and this guy broke up, was because he didn't want to explore like life and places. And that was a real thing of like just being like, how can you live half an hour away from like such a huge city and not even want to go?
It sounds like you were trying to convince him to take you to Edinburgh and pay £700 for a weekend, and he was just unwilling to do so. And I think if we've learned anything from that last submission, it's that he was entirely correct to do that.
You're bloody presuming that I want to have £700 spent on me. Actually, I had my own money and I just wanted some company.
And he's still unwilling to do that by the sounds of it, unfortunately. There's a question of whether there is ever really a good way to break up. Is there a right way to break up with someone? Sometimes it's difficult to do it, and sometimes you end up doing it in unexpected ways. This next submission that we've got here kind of occurred by accident, and we will have a listen to this now.
I was seeing this girl for a couple of months, not very long. I really wasn't happy with her, and I wanted to end it, but I couldn't think of the best way to do it. Because she hadn't actually done anything wrong, I just wasn't into it, you know. And one night, we were lying in my bed, and I was just in a really bad mood, and I thought, okay, I'll just watch some nice TV, and we'll go to sleep, and in the morning, I'll think of the best way to end this. So I stuck on one of my favourite movies, which is Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. Everything she was doing was annoying me. She was chewing too loud, she got crumbs on my bed, and at one point I just thought, oh. So I paused Scooby-Doo and I just went, this isn't working. And she looked at me and went, no, you just pressed pause. She thought I was talking about the movie. And then that was it. I ended it.
That's a wee shame that, like, she probably didn't even realise that she was about to get broken up with.
I'm not talking about Scooby-Doo. I'm talking about this relationship. That is, I mean, you've got to think, if you hear this isn't working, you know, it's pretty optimistic to go, no, you've just pressed pause.
I think that makes sense that you would think that if literally you were like pausing it and being like, this isn't working. I think that's I would think that you'd be like, yes it is, I'm fucking watching it.
That would be brutal. Imagine the realisation when he goes, no, I'm talking about the relationship, and she's like, oh fuck.
I think there's so much like cheesy language around breakups as well. Like, this isn't working. It's not you, it's me. Like, we're getting it all from all these like cheesy films.
We're going in different directions.
Like, it is awkward, or like, we need to talk. Like, I remember texting that when I was going to break up with someone, because they were like, do you know what? In my defense, it was because they were like, oh, I'm just doing these things and whatever. And I was like, I really feel like we need to talk. And they were like, oh, well, can it be tomorrow? And I was like, it kind of needs to be today. Because like I think I was like moving to Edinburgh or something, and I was like, it needs to be today. And then he just wasn't getting that I was like a breakup chat, and I was like, listen, I think we really need to talk. And it was like, because I needed him to know that it was kind of to give him the head start, so it wasn't a surprise, so that he kind of knew to expect that it was going to be a breakup. It's
hard sometimes to get it right, because sometimes like you can wait for the right moment, and sometimes you can drag it out a bit too long, and you know, there's never going to be a right time. So sometimes probably when it comes by accident, like, it's better. I think sometimes as well, like, see if it's if you're having like a lot of fights or something like that, it can maybe come up, you know, in the fight, because really all you need to do is basically like, rather than trying to like sort of diffuse the argument so that you stay together, you just sort of stick with the argument and then go, right, well, the argument becomes the breakup sort of thing. But like he was saying in that submission there, like he was saying, there wasn't a real problem. He just wasn't feeling it. And I've had an experience like that as well before in the past. And I think that's actually probably the hardest way to try and break off a relationship, is when there is no problem. When you get on with somebody well, it's just that you don't feel that way about them. That is the hardest one to me. And like, because it's really tough to justify, I think, and it's hard to tell someone that you just don't feel that way about them, because then, you know, what's your follow up, why, and then you need to examine all that, and sometimes it might not sound that pleasant, you know, if you were to really question that about yourself. But it's hard. See if you're in that position where you're in a relationship, you're not really feeling it. It's hard to continue, because you feel like you're living a lie, and you're lying to them, you're lying to yourself, and all that kind of stuff. But especially if there's no issue, it's hard to break that off. But the thing I would always say is, like, sometimes, like, if the choice is between, like, you know, you might be worried about even breaking up because you don't want to be on your own anymore. But if it's a hard choice to make when the choice is between like staying in a relationship that you're not feeling that way about, or becoming single, because then it's like, you know, there's no good option. And like, is it really that much to ask to just want to be in a relationship that you feel that way about someone? And if you don't, are you really that bad a person just by not wanting to kind of continue with this thing that your heart's not really in?
I think it's really important to be with someone that you really want to be with. I personally feel like in the early stages I can kind of glean whether or not I think I'll feel not as into it. So I haven't really found myself in that position, because I think that if I then are because it takes a lot for me to get into a committed relationship, purely because I want to be excited. I want to think that it can lead to, you know, like love, basically. And so like, I think it's better to take your time and kind of work out that is definitely something that you want to commit to. I have noticed there being a real thing of, this is a generalization, but it's from my experience, is that I think I've done a lot of breaking up, kind of what I said before, of like, I know that they also kind of want to break up, but they're not brave enough to do it. And I think it all comes down to not wanting to be the bad guy, and not wanting to be someone that they can go, he was a fucking arsehole, like he did this and then he broke up with me. And I think that it's like, but actually, like, why should the emotional responsibility lie with like the woman to end it? We just need to, as adults, I think, be clear with our communication and clear with our feelings. And if we aren't feeling it, just be brave and end it, because like it's like being cruel to be kind. To be honest, I've had that a couple of times where it's basically like, you know, they've ended up having to kind of say it for me almost, I guess. It's just so hard to know how to do it. It's so difficult. But it's hard on the other end as well, you know. No, I know, but I mean, it ends up just having to be a kind of mutual discussion at a certain point, and being like, look, this obviously isn't working or whatever. But it's really hard to bring up, because you don't want to be a bad guy, you don't want to be the arsehole. When you're in a relationship and you both kind of know it's not quite right, there's a huge step back, or there's like from the guy's end, there's a big step back, or they start behaving weird, or they start behaving badly, or they're like starting to be really detached or unkind, or like basically a bad boyfriend, and then you have to glean from that they don't want to be in the relationship anymore, rather than them just like sitting down and having a conversation and being like, this isn't working.
It's like if you're in a job that you don't want to be in anymore, instead of quitting, you just hope you do your job so badly that they'll end it for you.
That's exactly it. Just start doing a really shite job. That is exactly it. Yeah.
Hopefully they put me out my misery here. But
they want to be fired. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's fair. I don't want to do it either.
No. But no one does. That's the problem. But
unfortunately, I think when no one does, it's usually the woman who realises that it needs to be done, and therefore they will do it.
Sometimes in the relationship, where the woman will try and address it and be like, oh, you know, are you even this and that? And the guy just has to go, aye. And they just get that used to no really saying what they honestly feel, because they know that if they have the conversation, it's going to end things. And maybe they're not ready to end it. Maybe they're, you know what I mean, they're not in that place yet.
It's then not fair to, like...
I wouldn't say that, you know, you all that shit you're talking about, like, you know, totally pure sort of reverting and no being participating in a relationship. But
if you are having these thoughts, like, why do you have to, if someone says like you're being a bit funny, why do you have to be like, no, it's fine if you're not fine? Just say.
Well, because if then you say, then it's like, maybe if you're a bit conflicted about it, you don't know what you want to do yet.
But selfish. It's selfish to have someone else feeling like something's not quite right, and then that affects their mood and their happiness and ultimately their life, because that, you know, a relationship seeps into you as a person, and then, you know, your career, all that kind of stuff. So I just think it's a bit selfish not to communicate.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you know, it's selfish and you should do it, but it's like, you know, you can say you should do loads of things, but the reality is it's hard sometimes, and sometimes it's, you know, that if you have the real conversation, then that is going to be the end of things, and if you're not ready for that at that moment, then you might want to avoid it, or you might have to sort of like, oh no, it's not that at all, or whatever, and then you're just digging yourself a deeper hole of like, I'm going to need to prove everything they've been saying right, and that's hard to admit, you know. I think for me, one of the biggest difficulties, I think, in a relationship in general is like, it's always like, I would say for the most part, there's probably one person who's more into it than the other, right? Or I guess, I don't know, maybe sometimes, obviously, it's more even keeled. But I think that the problem is, you can never really know. I mean, you can communicate, you can say other things, you can look out for all the signs and all the rest of it, but you can never really know if the other person feels the same way about you as you do about them. And that's the real dilemma in a relationship, is you need to kind of trust that they do, but you might see someone as your soulmate and they see you as their until something better comes along, or vice versa. And really, in a lot of circumstances, I think there's no real way to know that for sure, and that's what's so difficult.
I actually disagree. I think that maybe it's because I'm interested in like behaviour and analysing behaviour, and like we kind of joke about me being like, what Hogwarts house are you? Or like, have you done the Myers-Briggs personality test? Or what's your love language? But like, actually, that is useful in the sense of the more that we can know about ourselves and the more they know about themselves, if you just communicate, and, you know, if you speak to someone and they say like, listen, like, I'm not really the biggest, I don't really like, so like love languages and all that, the things are like, how you give love and how you receive love, basically. So there's things like physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving, like giving your time. What was that one called?
There's all this stuff, but see, at the end of the day, does it not really come down to it?
Let me make my point, because it is valuable before you, because what you're doing is you're immediately writing it off as like horoscope chat.
Yeah, it's a wee bit horoscopy, but
it's not horoscope chat, because I think if you understand who you are and they understand who they are, and how you give and receive love, or if you need reassurance and all that kind of stuff, I think that you can know how the other person is feeling about you if that person is willing to communicate with you and be honest with you, and that you trust that they're being honest with you. So like, okay, yeah, there might there might be someone who is just a bit more likely to be a little bit more into it or whatever, but at the same time, that's just being a bit binary and a bit linear of thinking like, it's like that kind of stupid thing of you know, when people are like, what type of person are you? You take this like test of like you know, like Zoe or Zelda and like BoJack Horseman, or like being
what
like that.
What Friends character are you?
What Friends character are you? Like, obviously we have all these traits. It's just how it kind of like shows up, and like what we value most in life. But I do think that like there's no point in like saying you can never know how someone feels about you, because if you get to know them well enough and you trust that they're being honest with you, then you can know where you are in that relationship. You need to just be honest so that there's not that feeling of like ambiguity and thinking, do they like me? And that's why I really think that it's bad to kind of like behave badly and then be like, well, she should have known that I took a big step away and that I wasn't into it and that this was a thing. Like, just have conversations. I think it's hard to have conversations, but in the long run, it's the better thing to do.
I don't think anyone would say, oh, she should have known. What I mean is, it's like another person's mind is ultimately unknowable. And in that regard, like, you can, you know, it's, you can basically, you can sort of get it. Like, you can get the vibe. It's like that sort of thing. If it seems like, oh, they're being a bit funny or whatever, well, they probably are. Do you know what I mean? Like, those,
yeah,
it's like
your
that.
Gut. Yeah.
You know, he's just not that into you, sort of thing. It's like, you know, if it seems like that, then yeah.
But we shouldn't have to do all the like bloody analysing. This is what I mean. Like
I'm not talking, but you keep bringing this back to as if it's women need to do it. I'm just talking in general. Like, it's the case, and it's, you know, sometimes it'll be the guy that's like really invested in the relationship, the woman's not, and sometimes vice versa, or whatever other, you know, variables of that fucking thing you can.
But that's what I mean, is everyone should be honest, because it's not fair to be like, well, people should just kind of know, or they should. I do agree with you that we should trust our instincts.
But there's a lot of should there though. But it's, and I think I used to be quite judgmental about people that if I thought they were in maybe a relationship, I'm like, oh, like, you know, they've just, you know, settled or whatever, like
settled down.
Yeah, just
or settled to be in a relationship.
Settled to be in a relationship, or they just wanted somebody, and it's, you know, it's not even, you know, somebody
the right person for them.
No, the right person for them. But honestly, I mean, at a certain point, like, I guess we've all got to, you know, make a decision, like, oh, you know, maybe this is just the time to settle down, and you grow to love somebody or whatever. And from, you know, when you're in a relationship, like, the prospect of, you know, if things are all right, and, you know, they're not perfect, but they're all right, it's like you risk going for, you know, all right, you know, if you leave, you're kind of striving for perfect, but you could also end up, you know, having shit. And so that's the risk that you take. If that's the case, if it's not one, I think in terms of, if you're in a relationship you want to be in, and say you don't, you know, you need to kind of, as you say, trust that the other person feels the way about you that you do about them. You can never really know, and I think it maybe fluctuates, even from person to person throughout the course of a relationship, probably. But it's the funny thing. I mean, if it was that easy, then nobody would have any problems, you know. Like, if everybody done what they should do.
Humans are complicated, and behaviour is complicated. People have trauma. Like, I do get all that. Like, I know that I'm just talking about an ideal world.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't exist. I'm talking about reality, alright? I'm talking about reality.
We're talking about the fucking nitty gritty.
To sort of wrap things up, I think that if you get broken up with, I think what you need to try and do is get a bit of perspective on it. Don't take it personally. Don't see it as like a slight on your own self-esteem and something like that. And just realise that just because one person liked you doesn't mean that somebody else won't. And it might even teach you to sort of maybe not look for your happiness through, you know, other people as much, and maybe try and root yourself in it. Be happy, and then you can bring somebody into that happy thing. On the other hand, if you're somebody breaking up with someone, I think, and this is pretty much what we've been talking about right now, Rachel, is like, if you're trying to break up with someone, it's quite an awkward situation, you maybe don't know how to do it. You really just need to kind of go ahead with it and do it, because, you know, there's no point in dragging something out if it's not right.
I went through a breakup and my friend also went through a breakup. And so we went to my parents' caravan down on the borders and we started like calling it Heartbreak Hotel. And we were like, we chose it as like a little getaway. And then
you should have been listening to Eminem Beautiful. You would have really related because these were literally in a trailer park.
Hopefully much nicer than a trailer park, but no, it is. But it was funny because it was like a really nice bonding experience, and actually, we went. It was like me and them, and I think my mum was there actually, and it was like the nicest weekend. And just like it was funny because we'd both like have a cry, and then we'd both just be like crying with laughter, just having a pure nice time. And it was funny because it did make me kind of realize that, you know, like friendships are so valuable, and you know, like we can like agonize over like dating and like relationships, and they are really important. And I think it is important to, like, if you're choosing to share your life with someone, that you choose the right person. But I do think that you need to really acknowledge like how, you know, you don't need someone else to complete you, and you've like, you know, most of us have like a nice wee group of friends that, you know, you share like really meaningful times with. So like that was definitely a learning curve for me I obviously knew that before, but it was just that thing of being like, I am agonizing over this person who's not given me respect, not treated me nicely, and I have all these lovely, amazing people in my life, and I need to put value onto that, and really recognize the like how lucky I am to have like nice people in my life, basically.
Yeah, you rediscovered the value of your friends. That's a nice sentiment there. And I hope that we have provided that service for you, the listener, today.
We are your pals.
If any of the issues brought up in today's episode have affected you, we hope that we have at least given you some solace by you know, sort of talking about our own experiences and all that with this stuff, and hopefully if anyone out there has went through a breakup recently or anything like that, or is still getting over somebody, hopefully this could have been of any use to you, I hope, and maybe giving you a wee bit of the same thing that Rachel got in that caravan park, which was the value of friendship, and presumably shagged by someone else who lives in that caravan park.
How fucking dare you? That is so not true. That's a wholesome memory that you have tarnished.
So that about covers it for Breakups. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please do remember to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It really does help us get the podcast up the charts and help more people hear about the show. We've been really delighted with the feedback that we've had so far from everybody who's listened, but we want to let more people know that it exists. So please, if you can give us a 5-star review, that bump us up the charts and hopefully help reach more people, which will lead to hopefully more guests, more episodes, and a lot more content for you guys.
And if you'd like to slide into our DMs, you can get us on Instagram at Debating Dating. If you want to send us any submissions, voice notes, topics you want us to cover, any questions that you want us to chat about, then feel free to get us on our Instagram, our Twitter, or you could go old school and send us an email to debatingdatingpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we're on Instagram and Twitter at Debating Dating, because no one else took that. We got it somehow. I don't really know how that wasn't taken already, but we were lucky enough to get that handle.
I think there's like dating debates or something.
Dating debates. All these
that catchy one.
They really look the gift horse in the mouth. We managed to somehow get this title instead of anyone else. But that is us for this week's episode. Thanks very much for listening, and we will speak to you soon.
Bye.